Okay, welcome to another edition of Carnivore Radio. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Lopkin, and a day that will live in infamy, I guess, something I thought I'd really never see in my lifetime. I have seen it on some B movies with, the dictator of some fictitious Latin American country, but this is America, or is it, Dr. Lopkin?
Well, I mean, we've very clearly crossed the line. We're living in a banana republic now. The
Yes.
Democrats have seized power and they are using the DOJ to eliminate their political adversaries.
Yes, but it doesn't start with Biden. If you look at the FBI it's obviously a far cry from the Hoover days or when I grew up and watched it on TV, the FBI, an old show I'm sure you never saw, but held in among the highest regard from the American population. They knew, I mean, this is really important to me and probably for our listeners. They knew the Steele dossier was bullshit. They knew Russian collusion was bullshit, but they still kept up that narrative. I mean, that is scary.
It is. And yeah, you're right. It predates Biden. This all
Yeah.
goes back to the Obama administration because Obama was very effective at weaponizing the US government against his political enemies. He did it with the IRS, he did it with the FBI. And what's
Correct. It did start with Obama, and I'll just interject something really quick. He is the best dictator ever on this planet. I mean, he's charming, self-effacing, can yuck it up with rock stars like Springsteen, but behind the scenes, he's a cold-hearted son of a bitch. He looked Trump in the eye and said, "Yeah, I'm here to help you." Meanwhile, he's spying on him.
exactly? I mean, let's take a step back and go over what actually happened this week, what we know so far. Because there's a lot of stories out there and most of them are missing information. So, Eric Trump actually put out a statement describing what happened at Mar-a-Lago. The FBI agents showed up with a warrant. Okay? Now, first of all, I've spoken to some lawyers. There was no reason for a search warrant if they're looking for documents. This could have been done through a subpoena. So immediately you see the FBI entering when there was no need to. Now, let's keep something else in mind. Forget Donald Trump for a minute. This is Eric Trump's house. Eric Trump lost his mother 2 weeks ago. He's still in mourning, and the FBI came in like government jackboots into his home. Now, why would the FBI go for a search warrant? Well, the biggest reason is if they were concerned that Donald Trump was going to destroy evidence. This doesn't hold water because Donald Trump was in New York, not Florida.
Plus, he had all the time in the world to destroy any document he wanted.
Right. On top of all of this, Trump and his lawyers had been in negotiations with the Justice Department. They were cooperating. The National Archives actually wrote a statement saying that Trump was cooperating.
So why, my friend, why? That's the question.
But there's more to it because this wasn't a standard search and seizure. In a standard search and seizure, the person being searched or the property owner of the property being searched is given a copy of the warrant. According to the Trumps, they were not allowed to hold on to their copy of the warrant until they got a copy today, 2 days after the search. Trump's attorneys were thrown off the property. This is highly irregular and probably illegal. They were also told to turn off the CCTV security system because the FBI didn't want any record of what they were doing. Now, as I understand,
is that legal?
I don't think it is. According to,
that has nothing to do with you. You have a right. It's your house.
yes, according to the folks that work at Mar-a-Lago, they were told to turn off the CCTV system. Apparently, they refused. So everything the FBI did, if it's true that they refused to turn it off, is recorded somewhere.
That's good.
Now, you mentioned already the Steele dossier. The FBI knew the Steele dossier was fake. They
100%
Yes.
with Russian collusion too. They
Right.
knew that was also bullshit. They knew it 100%.
They knew the Hunter Biden laptop was true. And yet
Yes.
they said, well, that's Russian disinformation. So the big concern here, forget the fact that there's very obviously, a class of person being treated differently from everybody else, in this case, Republicans. What is to stop the FBI from planting evidence? There's no inventory of what they took. They could put anything in there and then claim they found it.
That's true. And wait a second. If we didn't have the backdrop of Russian collusion and the Steele dossier, I'd say, yeah, come on, it's a little bit of I don't think it would shock me at all. And I think you're 100% correct.
Because we now have a long history of the FBI using phony evidence. We know they lied to get the FISA warrant to spy on him during the campaign. So we have a history of them fraudulently using, their imaginations essentially to create fictitious evidence to go after him. So unfortunately, it's not even a leap.
No, it is not. No, it is not. And I think it's also not a leap to the liar in chief saying that he had no knowledge of this makes no logical sense. He would have to have been given the okay.
Well, there is a rumor, and I strenuously emphasize it is a rumor because I have not been able to verify this with my sources. But allegedly, there is a recording of a phone call where Biden was being informed that this was going to happen. So I don't know if that exists or not. It's still a rumor at this point. But
that's pretty important, Dr. Lopkin.
Yeah.
I mean, what kind of rumor is it? I mean, is it something that's believable? Who's recording? Because that's a smoking gun.
Yes, it is.
That's a smoking gun against Biden. I think that would finish his presidency.
It very well could. The fact of the matter is, we know there are FBI whistleblowers. Now, this is not rumor anymore. This is absolute fact. FBI whistleblowers have come forward on various occasions to Project Veritas. So we know the whistleblowers are in there. We also know at least one FBI whistleblower went to the Senate to tell them what was going on within the FBI. Now, this is all public record already, so this isn't even speculation anymore.
Okay, but let's get back to the Banana Republic, because I think it's even more extreme than that. I go back to the brown shirts almost. You have a weaponized arm of the Democratic Party that is systematically taking out enemies and showing to the American people and conservatives / Republicans in the government, Paul Manafort, others, Trump's chief of staff, a guy with like 70, with leg irons and machine guns. I mean, that's not just there by chance. It's sending a signal, isn't it?
It is sending a signal, and the signal is even broader than that. I mean, this is a wide-ranging campaign that they're launching. You cannot tell me that it is a coincidence that they held off on doing this until after the Senate Oversight Committee questioned the head of the FBI.
1,000%. You'd have to be a complete idiot or partisan moron to think that wasn't the case. Hello.
Now, you also can't
100%.
tell me Axios published a photo. Now, anybody with half a brain that looks at this photo can tell that it's faked. But Axios published a photo, and it was picked up by, of course, CNN, claiming to show handwritten notes that Donald Trump was trying to flush down the toilet. Okay, now, first of all, who's going to take a picture if you're trying to destroy evidence?
Yeah, who's taking the picture?
Right. Second of all,
it makes no sense.
Right. Second of all, these are large chunks of paper in this photo with clearly written handwriting on it. Again, if you're trying to destroy evidence, you pop it into a cross-cut shredder so nobody can read it, and you don't flush. Right. And you don't
Shredders
flush
have been invented
paper.
like 50 years ago. It's not 1950. Yes, I agree.
Right. And you don't flush paper, you burn it. I mean,
exactly. There you go. Thank you. Yes.
This was so obviously a faked photo leaked to Axios because let's face it, I mean, other than CNN and MSNBC, I mean, and quite frankly, I think even CNN and MSNBC might have questioned it if Axios hadn't published it first. It was so obviously fake, and they're going, oh, look, he's trying to destroy evidence. Again, he was in New York. When is this allegedly supposed to have taken place that they're raiding Mar-a-Lago?
Agreed. Okay, so let's look at, by the way, they said that this was all positioned or spun on someone they flipped within the previous administration. Have you heard that, Dr. Lopkin?
I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, it just came on the news that there was an insider that they flipped that gave information on what he or she thought was potentially at Mar-a-Lago.
All right, but according to what little they've said about the warrant was for documents that Trump took out of the White House.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now, there is something called the Presidential Records Act that requires these documents be preserved for history. Trump has already turned over 15 boxes of documents that may or may not have met those criteria. But I think it's important to bring up Sandy Berger.
Yes.
Now, for our
caught
listeners
on camera.
Right. For our listeners who are not familiar with Sandy Berger was a Clinton staffer who was caught trying to remove documents from the White House, not carrying a box out. He literally put these under his shirt, in his pants, in his socks, trying to remove them. The documents he was trying to remove were related to Osama bin Laden because the 9/11 Commission wanted to see what the Clinton administration had known about bin Laden prior to leaving office. This was a blatant violation of the Presidential Records Act, not to mention, possibly breaking several other laws. Not only did nobody raid his house, he was charged with a misdemeanor.
It's something of vital national security.
Yes,
obviously.
This is vital national security information, and he was charged with a misdemeanor. Meanwhile, there's no evidence that there's anything of national security in the Trump compound. There's nothing in the warrant, allegedly, suggesting that there is. And yet, they decided they needed to raid the facility.
Got to ask you another question, Dr. Lopkin. Just kind of, you wouldn't have more information than I would on this, but if you're Donald Trump and let's say you had a smoking gun document, why wouldn't you just get rid of it? Why would you hang on to it? I mean, it's like really stupid. You almost deserve to be arrested. I mean, you have this smoking document that says, I arranged everything, I was wanted a coup attempt, and you bring it with you? Hello, McFly. Is anyone home?
Yeah, he's been out of office for a year and a half. You think he wouldn't have gotten rid of... Yeah, you think he wouldn't have gotten rid of evidence, which again goes to the possibility, are they trying to plant evidence? Now, there's been a lot of speculation that they're using this Presidential Records Act to see if they can find any evidence tying him of criminal activity tied to January 6th. Here's the thing, though. We know they have no evidence tying Donald Trump to any criminal activity on January 6th. How do we know this? Well, we know this thanks to Liz Cheney. Not too long ago, Liz Cheney went on television and made the statement, if the Justice Department can find evidence linking Donald Trump to criminal activity, they should prosecute him. Okay, now that sounds like a fairly obvious statement. If you've got evidence of criminal activity, you prosecute. Yeah. But you have to think about this. This is Liz Cheney saying this. Liz Cheney has been a prominent member of the January 6th committee. The whole purpose of this committee was to find evidence of criminal activity and turn it over to the Justice Department. The fact that she is saying, if the Justice Department can find it, means the January 6th committee didn't find anything.
I would agree with that, but then doesn't it beg the question that maybe is this a Hail Mary to salvage January 6th with all its intended consequences? They thought this would be the knockout blow for Trump. Nothing comes up. It's a nothing burger, to quote Hillary Clinton, and life goes on. So is this a Hail Mary?
Probably. This it's been speculated by folks on both the left and the right that yes, the whole point of this raid was to try to find evidence tying him to criminal activity on January 6th. Now, here's the thing, and I'm taking this from Judge Jeanine Pirro. She appeared on Fox on the 5 yesterday, and she explained this process. As a prosecutor, you can go after a warrant saying, we know for a fact that this person has been selling drugs. So you get the warrant to go after those drugs. Now, when you actually go into the property and conduct the search, if you find AK-47s, that's a separate crime. You weren't looking for it, but you can now bring charges on it. That's probably what the FBI was trying to do. They were using the idea that he had documents he wasn't supposed to have. use
It gave
that
them
to get
access.
right. That gave them the access, and they are now trying. And you know what? I'm not even going to stop at January 6th. Given the scope of activities that the FBI has taken, from going back to the text messages during the Trump campaign saying they had a plan in place to keep him out of office, to the phony FISA warrant, I don't think they cared if it was January 6th. They want to nail him on anything they can.
Agreed. But let's get back to the Banana Republic, because I think that makes it almost more too humorous. I really believe you're looking at a fascist ideology that has creeped in to the Democratic Party, starting with Obama, and essentially that's what it's almost like like you said, a Banana Republic with the thug KGB or brown shirts as the enforcer and the eliminator of opposition. Is that a stretch?
No, unfortunately, it isn't at this point. I mean, take a
So
look.
do we really have a democracy in America? I don't think that's a question that is totally out there in left field. I mean, are we any better than just some two-bit dictator? When you can just take out your opponent. You can. I mean, this is a president, ex-president. This is unparalleled.
Well, I don't know that it's unparalleled. I think if you look at the last 16 years, it's actually a natural progression. Go back to the Obama administration. They weaponized the IRS to stop Republican and conservative political organizations from being certified as political nonprofits. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
These were organizations that wanted to do things like teach what the Constitution said. And I'm not making that up. That actually was used as an example by Jon Stewart back when he hosted The Daily Show and he was lambasting Obama for doing this. So you start with stopping the grassroots movement and people expressing their opinion. Fast forward to this week, you have the Democrats have now pushed through a bill, or are about to push through, giving the IRS 87,000 more agents to go after people. What do you think these 87,000 people are going to be doing? They keep saying they're going to be auditing the 1%. There's only about 10,000 people in the 1%.
Okay, well, I need to say something here because you're 100% correct, and that's one of the problems I have with the fascist Democratic Party. They really think we are so stupid that you need 87,000 agents for the time, and they're not going to touch any middle class person or business owner. That's really, I'd like to smoke some of that because that's some good stuff. Yeah, and that's about as good as saying the bill that just got put through the Senate is the Inflation Reduction Act.
But yeah, it's the same act, and I have taken a page from Bernie Sanders of all people, and I have used his name for this, which is the so-called Inflation Reduction Act. Because even he knows it's not going to do anything for inflation. But I mean, this even goes deeper. I mean, let's take this, follow the process. We've mentioned the weaponizing of the IRS. Obviously, the FBI have been weaponized. Now, law enforcement, for as long as there's been warrants, have always tried to get warrants signed by a friendly judge. If somebody believes as you believe, if they understand the situation, they're going to go easier on you. They're going to take your word for the affidavit, and they'll sign the warrant. So the FBI sought out a friendly judge. Well, this particular friendly judge has major ties to the Obama campaigns, was an Obama donor. But more frighteningly, when he was in private practice, defended cohorts of Jeffrey Epstein on charges of sex trafficking. So you're going to a judge that has ties to Obama, ties to Jeffrey Epstein, and if he has ties to Jeffrey Epstein, he's got ties to the Clintons.
Isn't it funny how the Clintons always find themselves in some underhanded situation? Epstein, Steele dossier. It's essentially a criminal organization.
And let's not forget, what Trump is being accused of with this warrant and this raid is that he took classified documents from the White House. Does this sound familiar to anybody? Hillary Clinton took classified information on her private server. They destroyed evidence. They destroyed the BlackBerries. Cell phones, yes. Was there any FBI raid? No, of course not. The IRS had documents subpoenaed by Congress, which they destroyed after the subpoena. Was anybody prosecuted for this? Did the FBI show up at anybody's home? No. There is very obviously a double standard that the FBI will go after Republicans, they will go after conservatives, but if you're a liberal, if you're a Democrat, oh, it's okay. Boys will be boys. It's...
Boys will be boys. I agree with that. But let's get back to the 87,000 IRS agents. The IRS, and I have no faith. Listen, the FBI's weaponized. You can break a person. You can break an organization through finances. So the 87, to be so naive to think that 87,000 are going to be having milk and cookies at the IRS office monitoring Bill Gates, you'd have to be an idiot.
Again, both the Joint Committee on Taxation, which is a nonprofit government committee, nonpartisan government committee, and the Congressional Budget Office, which is also a nonpartisan committee, both of them have come out and said it is an absolute lie that the IRS will only be going after people that make over $400,000 a year based on what's in this bill.
Oh, yeah, of course. And I think Americans have to be scared because they can say, oh, it's, again, that's a real possibility. We'll see how that plays out. I'm sure it's going to start. They'll start small and expand, throughout the country and weaponizing and going after. If you're conservative, I would worry. If you get audited, Dr. Lopkin, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, this is what's going to happen. And, you talk about this whole, banana republics. We have a two-tiered justice system. For those that are in the swamp, free pass. Outside the swamp, you are screwed. That is, by definition, a banana republic, isn't it?
It is. But now, let's take a minute, though, and take a look at the possible repercussions of what happened. Because this is the definition of the law of unintended consequences. There have been people already saying, if Donald Trump was on the cusp, maybe he wasn't sure if he was going to throw his hat into the ring in 2024. Nobody has any doubt he's running now. And there have been people on both sides of the aisle saying, congratulations to the FBI. You just handed Donald Trump the White House in 2024.
Okay, you need to wait. Hold on. Let's go through that. Okay, I agree and disagree with you, and let me just preface that. What if they do find something That's a question. If they don't, I agree. If they don't, the unintended, be careful for unintended consequences, as a good friend of mine once said. This has monumental repercussions. I think the Biden administration finished, Trump White House, huge implications for the FBI being basically put through the mill when the Republicans take over. However, on the flip side, if there is something there, does that rule out? Does that beat dirty Trump up enough that he's so weakened that even if he gets the Republican nomination, he's toast even to a senile 90-year-old?
At this point, what it actually depends on is what is found. And yes, all of these people who are saying you just handed Donald Trump the White House, they're all under the assumption that there's nothing there. And that includes the folks on the left. If they have evidence. Now, first of all, the evidence is going to have to be ironclad, because anything
and substantial. It can't just be some bullshit.
No. It's got to be substantial. It's got to be ironclad. If they cannot prosecute Donald Trump and have a jury find him guilty, there is a large percentage of the population that is simply going to assume the evidence is manufactured. If they can prosecute and find him guilty, it doesn't matter if people believe it's manufactured. Once he's found guilty, he is ineligible to run for office. And
Isn't that the goal?
I think that's the real goal. They want to prosecute him, have a jury find him guilty so he cannot run.
Agreed.
I don't know that. I mean, they're going to have to find him, classified information that's national security, that there's evidence he was selling to a foreign power.
If he gets caught with that, he deserves it because he's really friggin' stupid.
Well, but
like we talked about earlier, to be holding on to documents, a year and a half later, God, are you stupid? Which I don't think is the case. Either it's going to be manufactured or something that if it parses legality, that's not enough either. If it's some bullshit law that he didn't report some bullshit form, who gives a shit?
See, but
no one does.
Here's the other thing.
You raided a house for that?
Yeah, here's the other thing, and a number of folks have already talked about this. If they find classified information, okay, there's a big difference between finding classified information in Hillary Clinton's hands and finding it in Donald Trump's hands. Donald Trump was the president. Part of his job is declassifying documents.
Yeah, I mean, how does the president not have classified documents? He's got the highest clearance in the nation, obviously.
He can literally say under oath, no, that is not classified. I declassified that before I left office.
It's very interesting. There has been, I guess, kind of to somewhat wrap this up, I think that I believe right now that the reaction, even from the left or left-leaning outlets and pundits, is not what the FBI or the people that orchestrated this did envision. I think people are thinking this is a step too far, and if, like we just talked about, if there's no there, I truly believe it is the end of the Biden administration, and it is 4 years of Donald Trump. He's now a martyr. He's now lionized as someone that's been screwed over for 6 years. I think it blows away all those, especially the first impeachment fiasco. I think it strengthens him if there's no there. And the other thing I'll say about that is, in terms of Biden, he's always been obviously not the sharpest knife in the draw. That's even when he was sane. But now, he's always been a pathological liar. He said he knew nothing about this. Even left-wing pundits said that's impossible, that he was not tipped off.
Yeah, I'm sure that.
And why did he take a week vacation right on the precipice?
Right after, yes.
Oh, it was just chance. And it wasn't, and it was kind of planned. So you don't think he's getting out of Dodge?
Exactly. He's not, the White House isn't going to answer any questions about this. There has been wide speculation over the last 2 days that the FBI raid, regardless of whether or not they find anything, has solidified the red wave that is going to hit in November. Because remember, Trump's not on the ballot. So they can't say, oh, well, Trump, people are looking at this going, no, you've just mobilized his base. You've motivated them. They are going to come out in force in November. There are a number of Democrats that are in very tight battles in the Senate who are now going, shit, I just lost my race.
Do you believe that to be true? Do you think it's going to even turn around a race like in Pennsylvania with Dr. Oz, who's done jack shit?
I don't know that it's going to be able to turn around Dr. Oz. Dr. Oz is down by at least 10 points. He's a political neophyte, and you take a look at his TV show, he was an abject moron in the stuff he was talking about. So that one race, I don't think anything's going to save Dr. Oz. That when you put up a candidate that bad, you don't deserve to be saved. But
by the way, he hasn't even campaigned. You know that? I was at the Jersey Shore, pretty much a suburb of Philadelphia, and a friend of mine was saying that Trump's really pissed at him because he's been in Florida half the time sunning himself.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anything's going to save Dr. Oz, and I don't think anything should. He's not qualified for office. I don't care what party he's in. He needs to be kept out of office. And I don't care if Trump likes him. That was a mistake. Yeah, this is not somebody who should be in office. But I think it has solidified the red wave. The House, there's no question the Republicans are going to take. The Senate, I think this may just give them the go-ahead to take it.
Pick up the 2 seats they need. Right. I know they only need 1. But, if it was a 50-50 proposition, I believe you're correct. It's tipped the scale. Right now, I give it was 55% Democrats gaining or at least holding. I think that's flipped because of this.
Yes.
Assuming there's no real there.
And both House members and Senate members have expressed this, but Lindsey Graham said it best. He put Garland on notice. He said, you better have all of your ducks in a row. You better save all of your paperwork because come January, this is going to be investigated.
Without doubt. Now, we talked about the red wave. I think in closing, it'd be interesting for me and our listeners for you to see in terms of how do you think this plays out? Not just about the red wave, but in terms of the state of government in America and the Biden administration, who, by the way, is up to its highest level. He's now in a recent poll at 40%. So how do you think this affects Biden, assuming that there's no there? Is it the end of his presidency? And what happens to the American sentiment about once highly esteemed organizations like the FBI? What does it mean?
If there's no there, or if, God forbid, they actually try to plant evidence and people find out about it, the FBI has basically they have to fire everybody and rebuild from scratch. It's going to be an abject disaster for the American justice system. You mentioned Biden is now at his highest rating. I don't think that's going to last too long. We've speculated on this podcast for a long time that Biden's not really in charge. Other people are running the show. I'm starting to change my mind on that. I think Biden has a lot more control than we've given him credit for. And the reason I say this is because they screwed up time and time again. Then all of a sudden, the Democrats are able to get bills passed and get things done. Everybody's like, oh, it's a big week for the Biden administration. Where was Joe Biden when all of this was going? In quarantine. So I think he is the one screwing everything up, and the Democrats want to leave him in the basement so they can try to get something done.
Great point. My last question to you, Dr. Lopkin, is the phone call that you thought there was some tape or something that would substantiate that he actually did get the tip off. If that ever comes to light, what repercussions, if any, does that have on Biden?
If that actually exists and it comes out, and honestly, I believe that if it does exist, it will come out.
I would agree with that. Yes.
That's the end of Biden. That's the end. He will have lost all credibility, lying to the American public about going after a political, not just a
political adversary.
Political adversary. Because remember, this is what they impeached Trump for on that call to the Ukraine. It was attempting to get information about a political adversary.
Well done, Dr. Lopkin.
If it turns out that Biden actually knew about this and gave it the go-ahead, guess what? He has just done what they impeached Trump for.
Well said. Great podcast, Dr. Lopkin, and we can be heard almost everywhere, can't we?
We can. You can catch every episode at xvadio.com/podcasts, the Carnivore Radio website, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Audible, and any platform that respects freedom of speech.
Can we still be heard on YouTube?
For now, we can, yes.
Very good, Dr. Lopkin. See you next week.
We'll see you then.